Alright, I have prepared several variations to the Humvee for you to consider. These are devices that redirect the force of an explosive going off underneath the Humvee, and their purposes, or the variations, are about redirecting the force out away from the vehicle as fast as possible, or through the vehicle where it is necessary to be done. A couple are fitting to a Humvee as it currently is. The last one will be an entirely different design for a Humvee, and their purpose is to protect life and limb. So if you give it a little thought and have a little bit of consideration for the fact that this is not, professional models, this is just presenting you an idea so that you can gather the information necessary to assemble something in your own mind so that you can understand what it is that the options are. You could possibly benefit from it, and you might be able to save someone's life or someone's limb with it. It is a free gift to the public, not because it doesn't have any value, but because there are more things. Some things are worth more than money. Quite honestly, some things are worth more than money. And if you look at my website at the back end of what these things are, you get an idea of what I mean by that in a more deliberate term. But that's up to you. That's not the point. The point is to save life and limb here. See what you can do with it. It's free. Try to keep the other people from stealing it. Alright, this is about Humvees. We're going to use this as a representative model. It's to scale more or less, about a 1/10 scale. And the reason we're doing this is because Humvees drive over bombs, and when they drive over bombs, bad things happen. So we're going to try to identify the miscellaneous things that we can or cannot do to minimize the damage that a bomb can inflict. So we look at the vehicle itself. It's three basic parts, with the people on the inside here. Everybody understands that. And what we can do is there's 16 inches of room between the ground and the bottom of the vehicle, more or less. 16 inches is not necessary in most situations. So we're going to take a little bit of that room, 6 to 8 inches of that room, and create a shock absorbing, a hydraulic method of absorbing shock, so that it deflects some of the force. And then we're going to incorporate flumes through the middle of the truck itself, and they'll come out the roof, and that will direct more force through the vehicle instead of just simply underneath the floor of the vehicle. And then we're going to cut the back end and the front end somewhat loose, so that we can allow the vehicle, or the component that holds the passengers, we're going to allow it to rise and absorb some of the energy that way. So this is about three basic principles that can be incorporated into this vehicle, and will then help in survivability of bombs that would be placed in their path. For the purpose of, this is about the Humvee again, for the purpose of absorbing the energy from an explosion underneath the vehicle, what we're going to do is we're going to take we want to use hydraulics. So we're going to take a can like this. I'm going to put a little bit of water in it. But the can is actually 3/4 full or so of water. It can be food or anything like that. And it's enclosed. And so when a force comes up from the bottom, as long as the pan of the Humvee can resist it. This will crush down, and the fluid inside, being non-compressible, will cause the can to erupt so that the liquid can come out. And to alleviate some weight, which is particularly important, we're going to put it inside another can and lock it in there. And that way, when the smaller can crushes and the fluid comes out, the bigger can holds the fluid until it actually compresses up, and the force of the fluid trying to get out actually erupts that can. And you can even put it into a third can. So that's the basic first method of shock absorption. It's hydraulic, and it uses the corrugations here are probably necessary so that we get the right deformation of the can, each can, so that instead of becoming little shards that go here and there, we want it to collapse onto itself at the right kinds of pressures that are designed by whether or not whatever the Humvee itself can tolerate. In actual practice, we're going to look at this. This is just straws. They're supposed to represent little cans, which is, the most I'm going to do for this project. And they're stuck in caulk. But nonetheless, each one of these is supposed to represent a little can, like we were discussing with these. Only bigger, of course. And the little cans go onto the bottom of the Humvee, like this. They take up about a half an inch of room. Well, they take up 6 to 8 inches worth of room, and they will collapse up to where it's completely enclosed. And the bottom pan will help with some of the energy deflection. These are held on with straps, so that you come along, you can disconnect them from the inside of the vehicle, drop the pan down, and simply drive over the top of it. That would be the method of use that would be constant with what we want. So that's the first method of shock absorption. We want to also get rid of the energy as fast as absolutely possible. An explosive energy comes instantaneously. It's very, very large, and the only way you can dissipate that is to let it go on through. So now I'm going to drill some holes in the top of here and show you what that looks like. Those. So we're putting pipes through the center of the vehicle. We're just going to call this a pipe. And it's going to sit in between the soldier's legs, because it has to go somewhere. And it's going to be undone from the inside of the vehicle, so you can take it out and put it to the side if you're in an area which just doesn't need this kind of protection. And if you do, it will detach from the inside, and you will raise it up and through the roof, and you can create a little cradle on top of the roof to hold these pipes so that they are out of your way if you need the room or just simply want the room. So I'm going to figure that there can be 6 people in the vehicle, and even the driver gets one, because the driver needs to be able to have some protection too. But the driver is going to have have a closed circuit TV or something, so that instead of actually viewing the pavement in front of him, he needs a camera in the front and a little viewing screen back, so they can reach around the pipe basically and watch the screen about where he's going. Either that, or you can leave the driver on his own, which wouldn't be very friendly to the driver. Either that, or you can put 2 smaller pipes to each side, and he fits in between them, or whatever it is you think you need to do. So I'm going to put these pipes in place and show you what that's like. This is the bottom, or the place where the shock absorbing materials are, And the pipes sit in between those shock absorbing materials, each one of them. There'll be, in this case, 6 of them. We'll show you what that is here in just a bit. Alright, now we have our Humvee with the bottom shock absorption plate on it, just taped to it so that it can come off. It has whatever ground clearance is absolutely necessary and not a lot more. And then it has these pipes in the top of it, which cause, when a force is applied here, they'll actually go through the bottom plate all the way down. Forgot to do that. Anyway, you'll have to use your imagination for that. So there are holes that go all the way into the bottom, and there are pipes that go all the way through the roof. That directs any explosive forces directly through the pipes and out the top of the vehicle, leaving the plate that the feet of the military people are on somewhat more intact. Now the hydraulic shock absorptions that are, the cans that I showed you, that collapse and absorb energy that way. In the first place, those cans, when each can erupts, that takes an amount of energy, and it actually produces a sideways shock to absorb some more of the energy. And then the next can that erupts produces another sideways force. And if you have 3 cans, that produces another sideways force. And then, of course, as the whole pan collapses to the bottom of it, more velocity of force comes out through the sides. So anyway, the pipes can just simply go up through the roof as the bottom is pushed up. Those pipes go up with it, or you can make it so that they're more stable, but you have to. It takes more structure, and then there are more problems. So that's the second means. So we have hydraulic means to dissipate some of the force and leave the bottom floor intact. We have the pipes here to let the force go through, and they don't have to be terribly strong if you put Kevlar or the appropriate material inside the pipes, or you can use your own decision. If you think Kevlar is good enough, you can just put the Kevlar as pipes, as a cloth material that goes through the roof, and you're done that way. But the problem with that is, when an explosion or that force is going through the Kevlar material, the little round tube that the cloth will make, that force is going to provide an immediate outward impact, and if you are anywhere close to it, it will get you, and it can, if not damage, not tear off an arm or something, it will damage you. It's better than not having anything at all, but you have to keep your distance from it, and it has to be relatively tight. So it doesn't have to be a structural pipe. You can make it another way. As far as the driver goes, the Kevlar material might be the best option. That way you can sew it together, sew a line across it to collapse it to the point where he can see around it, and then the sewing comes apart when the force goes through it, and it shapes the tube. But you might want to put some kind of leg restraints so that your legs cannot go too close to that Kevlar pipe. You want to keep your distance from it, or it will injure you badly, because that's what force does. It just depends on the size of the bomb, really. So that's it for the second part of what you can do to minimize the damage to a vehicle. Alright, this is our Humvee with the hydraulic shock dispensers, you might call them. Food cans, basically. One with liquid in it and the rest not, but you understand. These are the structural pipes that allow the force of the explosion to come up through the bottom and exit out the top. And if you can make them structural, by making a suitable pin or something into the roof, and that way the roof helps to hold the floor down. If they're going to be structural pipes, if they're going to be Kevlar, of course that doesn't work. But if you actually taper the Kevlar tube up to the top, that will cause the explosion to come out in kind of like a funnel, and that funnel will absorb some of the, will resist some of the force going through, because it has to funnel through the smaller opening at the top, and that transfers energy, or that transfers force through the socket, or the socket itself, down into the floor to hold back some of the force that's coming through it. If you understood that, it actually does work, but you have to, again, create some kind of border for feet to don't get in any closer than this. Feet or legs, you have to have some kind of padding on it, on a structural pipe, so that if the legs are touching, which they will be at times, so you have to have padding on it to absorb that initial extreme shock, or it will not help you nearly as much. So this is the third method, and the third method is by creating it doesn't have to be a hinge, just a support that can come apart here. You put just a little bracket on top of some sort. It can even be a pin from the bottom, but that's irrelevant. Anyway, these are attached, and then you can see when an explosion occurs, what happens is that the passenger compartment goes up. The force of the explosion goes up, and by bringing the front and the back down, you create much more room for it. And that literally eliminates the weight of the front and the back off of the compartment itself. Off from the force lifting that too. If you can remove the weight, then the whole package goes up. And if the whole package goes up, then of course there's less force against it, less intense force against it. So these are the three primary, certainly, methods of making a Humvee safer for the occupants inside. And of course, like I said, structural pipes can be taken out from the inside. If you find yourself in a situation that needs that, you can either let them roll off the top and go back later, or you can attach them to a chain or something, so they sort of stay there, or a border around the top or something. Whatever it is that you think you want to do. So the next part of that is how to identify the person who is in fact operating the switch on the explosion. Alright, we're going to target a Humvee, and that's important because you want to know where to find the bomber. So as we take a look here, we have to have a sight reading. We have to have something to reference our target with. That little dish rag up there is supposed to be your mountain in the distance, an individual peak or something like that. And when there is an explosion, that's how you find the person. You go where the bomb blew up, and you look perpendicular to that in nearly every time, or almost perpendicular. You find the most recognizable peak, and then you go back on the other side, and the bomber will be over there, because he's got to have some kind of target reference, or he cannot determine where the bomb is on the road. He has to have you know, a reference so that he knows where and when to assign it. So we have this is a little red spot there is the target. So we're lined up right now with the target, even though you can't see it. And you know, people are going to be 1,000, 2,000 feet away. So here is the Humvee, and we know that the Humvee does not align with our target, you know, our obstacle there. So when it lines up, that's where the explosion goes. So let's just line it up. Alright, so the Humvee is now directly centered with our reference point. And if you're a bomber, that's when you're going to ignite that bomb. If you're a military convoy, for instance, your reference is, you know, he can't really reference it from the side. You know, he's got to be looking at the target obstacle up there, that dish rag. He's got to be looking at that. Something between, so the Humvee needs to be between that and the obstacle, the target he's looking at. So you turn around from a bomb that went off. And if you're looking in the distance, that's where he was sitting. From this target across that bomb crater, and there he is. So, you know, you can go find him. Alright, the last thing we're going to discuss is detecting the bomb. So, you can have a little mechanized little wagon, and this is just a block of wood. I'm not bothering with the wheels and what have you. Pushed in front of the Humvee. It actually would be a little device that's powered by itself, most likely, so that, you know, with the appropriate tie back to the Humvee to control it. So it goes around the corners, up and down, what have you, without any real problem, and you can get rid of it if you want to, without too much trouble. So the thing with a little vehicle in front of the Humvee, you can put metal detectors and all types of things in that little box, and then you can, you know, give yourself a warning before you get there that this is a problem. You know, it doesn't have to be connected to the Humvee necessarily. It can be tied to it. Well, it sort of has to be. Well, you can figure that out. You can also fly something ahead of you so that you can see, you know, the ground disturbed or things like that that's coming up that looks different. But primarily, the most effective means of keeping out of trouble is to put a metal detector up there right on top of the road, you know, searching as well as you can, you know, with little arms on the side so that it picks up whatever there is to pick up and gives you a beep or whatever it is you want, and you drive it from inside the Humvee. If you need to get rid of it, you turn it all the way to the side, and actually the arm will just pop off the Humvee, and you'll have to maybe drive over it, but that isn't a real problem. So, you know, if you have to get rid of it. So, like I say, you can fly one instead, but that's not going to give you a metal detector. Put wheels on that little thing up there. Put a metal detector, a good strong one. Put something that can cause the cell phone, you know, whatever they're trying to, the cell phone to fry itself, or whatever it is you can think of. Well, this is our little Humvee model. As you can see, we'll have we have two little people in the front seat there. be the driver and the other is the passenger, and what you see in the middle is a hole for the blast to go through. Now we have to, this takes a little time, so bear with me a little bit. Well, let's just go with the blast part. This is, now we've opened it up and we see that we have, you know, cushioning for blast absorption. And if you take paint and put paint down the corrugations, you can create, or caulking of some sort, and you can create a fairly significant blast absorber. I'm not saying you have to do that, but it is one way. So this is a 6-passenger vehicle. 3 on this side, 3 on that side, 2 face backwards. So when you get a blast, you know, something has gone wrong, the blast comes up through on both sides and through the middle, and it goes out through the roof. It just blows the roof off, or there's rain caps on the tunnels, and so you go. Now the whole purpose of this is to remove the obstacles for the force of the blast to go, you know, so that it gets rid of the force as fast as absolutely possible. So we also, this is a backrest that comes up and goes and actually works against the roof there, and you can create some structure to hold it down. So we have a seat here, and we have a hole for each foot. And that pipe for each foot gives you a much more probable stance to keep your feet. The pipes need a sleeve pipe inside, so that you have, you know, well, I'll let that go. So everybody has little sleeves or holes. So you slide in and you put your feet down the hole. And these are seats like a kitchen chair, so that you stand up straighter and taller, so that you get further away from the blast and more able to absorb it. So this is well, let's just go here. So this is a pickup bed, and its purpose is to be flown off in the case of an explosion. If the explosion is in the back, we want to get rid of the force as fast as possible, so the explosion simply blows the back end off. In this case, the little rod down the middle there, that is the drive shaft, but it's a high RPM drive shaft, engine speed, and it comes to the transmission, and what will be the rear end for the back. And the Humvee, the rear end is going to be powered just like the Humvee is now, except for the transmission is in the back. And the transmission is in the back to get as much material as possible away from the human section. So we have a lid that goes off of, you know, blows off too in the front. We would have vectors down here so that the force pushes this off. The whole idea of this whole front end is it will push off. I'll do that for you in a minute. And to get space, this is the motor. And this is, you know, the wheel. This is a frame, and it rocks back and forth to give you some shock. And it also, if you put a small lever action here, you can create, this is torsion, intended to be a torsion spring. And it's also, you can put a rocker arm here, and you can create a much finer kind of ride. So anyway, we have this. This works out here. These wheels go back and forth like that, with just, it's no big thing. But we need to do that to avoid the materials that are otherwise used to hold up the vehicle that go inside of here, and we want to remove those so that the blast comes through. We want the blast to get out of the way as fast as possible. And if we have that, then we also have a rocking fitting here, and the purpose of it is I want to blow off the engine. Alright, so we're back at the front of the machine again after the motors come off, and we take a look at the bottom. And the bottom has V channels on it, and those are blast deflectors. So if you get a bomb coming off, the bomb hits the V and it spreads to either side. And what goes through the middle will go up through that center that we had in there and out the holes on top. Stick it back on there again. So, all right. So a blast, and the bottom of the Humvee there comes up through the center, out these holes, and then through the top. There's a little rain bottom on the top. So we have the back end comes off easily. You know, it can be on there in such a way that a bomb blast will easily throw it off. The front of the thing, the motor assembly, gets thrown off. You can see the little back end pivot point there, and the wheels go up and down. So it has several little pairs, and the wheels can actually give you more ground clearance or not. It's just a simple matter of torsion springs adjustments, or it can be done in a different way as well. So we have the purpose of the machine is to if a bomb goes off underneath it, is to take the force and get rid of it as fast as possible. So you can, that's what this does. By removing the motor compartment, you remove the weight and allow the passenger compartment to react a little differently. Removing the back allows the passenger compartment, you know, it takes weight off so that it has less effect. You have to have a certain amount of width to be able to do that kind of thing and keep it stable. You can actually set out the wheels further if you wanted to. These are you can, instead of 8 feet wide, it could go to probably 12 feet wide if you really wanted to. Not that it would be important necessarily, but it would, you know, provide a more stable top. But there again, if you were running across landmines, that would be important. So the idea is that if you go across the field and there are landmines and a wheel hits the landmine, if it's, you know, further away than from the vehicle, then the wheel will be lost, but the vehicle probably would not, nor the people inside of it. At least the problems would be far less. The back can be just like the front, and if you wanted four-wheel drive, you can do that with electric motors in the front, or you can do that with miscellaneous mechanical hookups. The Humvee, as it is right now, is powered higher than the wheels. Well, I'm not going to go there. Anyway, the center section here, once you have removed the blast focusing funnel, that thing over there, once you've taken it out, you can put seats back into it, or use it for storage space or whatever you want, where you have a situation that doesn't require the extreme caution that would be for, you know, a blast equipped vehicle, which is what this is. This is, you know, strictly for blast purposes. That's the only reason this is designed so. And it is, you know, able to take the force and move it around people, which is its purpose.